Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Charlie Models. Time for another inbox review, and today we have another large box kit, and this is the Trumpeter 132nd Suhkoi Su-27 Flanker B right here, and absolutely lovely box art on the front right here. Then we go off to the side, and then we have the top and side schemes right there. We only have one scheme to go with this kit, but it is a fairly nice scheme on this. And then we also have our weapons right there. Now we flip it over to the other side, and we have the front profile or head-on profile right here, and then we also have a nice little history about the flanker as well. So I'm going to get everything set up, and then we can start going into the actual instructions, decals, and the plastic. So give me 1 second. Alright, so starting off with the instructions, we have the typical Trumpeter format with the landscape booklet right here. This is item number 02224 right here, and on the front of the instructions we have the typical read before assembly, decal application, and the legend of the symbols that we're going to see throughout this instruction sheet. And then we also have our sprue callouts right through here. They are all nicely numbered on here, so you can see what number each part is on this sprue callout going through. We have multiple sprues, decals. Our intakes are all one piece right here, and then our rubber wheels and then our exhausts are right here as well. And we also have some metal shafts and some photo etch to go in this kit as well. Alright, so we're starting off with the cockpit tub, getting all of that assembled. We do have some panels to go in to liven up this cockpit tub. We also have a control stick and rudders going in there as well. Our instrument panel, our dashboard, is a three-piece set, so you have this black or blank back piece right here that you'll paint white, and then you put the film on top of that, which will show all your instruments. And then we have a clear part that goes on top of that will be all painted up. Moving on from there, we're starting off with getting our machine gun assembly done, and then our left and right main gear assemblies as well. Then after that's all done, we're adding in a couple parts to our upper fuselage, getting that all set up, and then our cockpit assembly and our gun bay is going into our upper fuselage. Then after that, we're getting our nose landing gear bay or cabin assembly assembled, and then we're starting to work on our wings, our flaps and slats and all of that. So these will be positionable with these photo etch and shafts that will be going into this. Now me personally, I'll be gluing mine in place. I don't do the movable flaps and all that stuff. I just glue it in one position and then that's it. Alright, so after that's all done, we have our wings going into our lower fuselage along with our main landing gear cabins and our nose landing gear cabin going in, and it's also secured by a few screws right there. And we also have the back end of our main landing gear cabins going in there as well. Okay, then moving on after that, we are getting our upper and lower fuselage sandwiched together, again fastened with screws, so that's really going to help with the fit or the security of this kit as well. Alright, so then moving forward, we're adding in our instrument combing, which is also covering up one of the screws that is used to get the two fuselage halves together. We're also adding in our slats right here, and then our nose cone, and then looks like possibly a boot that goes for our canopy actuator right there. After that's all done, we have our air-to-air missiles all being assembled and attached to the pylons as well. Getting all those done, some nice loadout. Not too many missiles on this, different types of ordnance to go on this kit, so we'll see if we're loaded down or inundated with ordnance like we are typically with Trumpeter kits. Alright, so moving on, we're working on our intakes, getting our intakes on. We have our FOD gates right in here, and then we have a couple more pieces to go on to both of our intakes, and then we're adding in getting our fins for the lower fuselage together. After that's all done, we're attaching our pylons and ordnance onto the wings, and then getting our intakes into the fuselage as well. After that, we have a couple more missiles to add, and then also our fins for the fuselage. Then we also have a few lumps and bumps to add in, along with the start to our main landing gear as well. After that, we are starting with our nose and our main landing gear. It does look like it has a spring assembly, so the suspension will be workable on this, which is nice because then when you have a loaded aircraft, it'll sit a little bit lower than an unloaded aircraft, so that's a nice touch. Also adding in a bunch of little antenna and all that to the bottom of the fuselage. Looks like the antenna are photo-etch, so that means they are going to be nice and thin. After that's all done, we are adding in a couple of struts to our main landing gear and our nose landing gear to really give that support, and also attaching the landing gear into the fuselage. And then we're adding in our main landing gear doors and our nose landing gear doors as well. Okay, moving forward, we're adding in or getting our left and right horizontal stabilizer together, our HUD, and then we're getting in our burner cans all assembled right there. Looks like a decent amount of detail on that. We'll have to see here in a second. And then moving forward, a few more steps to go and we are done. So adding in getting our left and right vertical stabilizer done, and also our canopy section done as well, adding in a few rear view mirrors and a couple pieces right in there, and then our speed brake as well, getting that all done as well. After that, we're getting our exhaust and our horizontal stabilizers and the little stinger for the tailpiece added right here. And we also have another blanking plate to go on to block off the screw that we use to fasten the two fuselage halves together. And then we are adding in a few antenna to the bottom. We do have the option of having this antenna as either photo-etch or plastic as well, so that will be nice option right there. Then we're adding in our air brake. Have the option of having it the open or closed position, or it might be movable. We'll have to check that out. And then we're adding in some pitot tubes, some AOAs, and also the panels for our gun as well. Moving right along, we are working on our ejection seat. We do have to remove these seat belts right here because we do have photo-etch seat belts in this kit. Also ejection handle and a few other pieces going onto the ejection seat. Looks like it should be okay on the detail wise. I personally am not a fan of photo-etch seat belts, but we'll have to see how they look. After that's all done, we're working on our front windscreen, getting a sensor on there, and also our nose pitot tube, AOA tube, and a couple other sensors going on here as well. And then finally, the last step, we're adding in our canopy and then our vertical stabilizers and a couple other pieces to go in there as well. Moving on to our color schemes right here. We only have one color scheme for this, and that is the 582nd Fighter Regiment, 4th Air Army, Soviet Northern Group of Forces, Frontal Aviation, Kozhna, Poland, 1992. I'm really liking the multi-tone blue and gray scheme on here, so definitely looking forward to doing this one. So we have the two side profiles, top profile, and then the bottom profile on the reverse side. Then we also have all of our pylons with the decal placements and all of that on there, as well as our weapons all being added on that as well. Moving on to our decals. Decals do look fairly nice. They have a matte coat. The one thing I am kind of worried about this kit is on the decals, the carrier film. You can see rather clearly the carrier film on this, so I am worried about having silvering when applying these decals. So, and like the stars aren't really a big issue, but the numbers, a lot of carrier film involved with those. And then also all these extra ones right here, and on the pylons, there's a lot of carrier film involved with those. So definitely worried about silvering with those decals. Alright, in typical Trumpeter fashion, we have boxes inside of boxes. So let's take a look inside the first box. First box, we have our intakes right here. Let's see. Alright, so intakes. Absolutely gorgeous rivet detail all the way through here. We do have a little mold seam right here, a little shrunken mold right in here. Gonna definitely need to take care of that. But the rivet detail and panel lines on here, absolutely outstanding on that. And then on the reverse side as well, we have that one giant mold line going right down there. That is going to be definitely gonna have a lot of rivet detail to restore when you get rid of that seam line. Now on the inside, we do have a few ejector pin marks. All of these I'm not worried about back here because you're gonna have your FOD plates down, so you won't be able to see them unless you put them in the up position, and then you'll be able to see them. We also do have two ejector pin marks right at the top right here. You will be able to see those, but they are kind of difficult and they are a little bit shallow, so they should be fairly easy to either sand out or take care with putty on that. Alright, then up next we have our nose cone. Nose cone looks pretty good. We do have a little bit of flash on here, and then we do have some center mold seams right here to take care of. Just take your knife across it and it should come out, but a sander might be a better job of that. So definitely gonna have to take care of that. And like I said, we have a little bit of flash on the tip of the nose right there. Alright, so moving on to our next box, we have the first part of our exhaust cans right here. We do have a little bit of flash on the inside right here, but easy to knock off with a fingernail. And the interior detail on here does look very, very nice. As you can see, some nice ribbing on the inside of the exhaust can. Do have some fairly shallow, very faint ejector pin marks. I can barely see it if I'm looking at it in the light at the right angle, but those should be okay. Then moving on to our first clear part, our front canopy, we do have a seam line down the middle of it, so that will need to be taken care of. And also, we do have a little bit of a kind of a wavy, pitted texture to this front windscreen right here. I'm seeing a couple pits. I'm also seeing some circular areas where the plastic came in at different temperatures and dried or cooled at different times. So we do have a little bit of a wave to it. So that's one issue with this canopy that I am seeing right now. We also have our rubber tires right here. No sidewall detail on them, and also the tread is very, very light, almost non-existent, and we do have a center seam line going all the way around the tire, and that's for all three tires as well. I think for this kit, definitely going to be getting aftermarket tires for this. Then up next we have our main canopy, and the same issue is with the main canopy as what we had with the front canopy. First we have this seam line down the middle, which is kind of common practice, but then we have the webs or all of that. Just, it does not look like good, clear, smooth plastic. You can see the waves. It's not an even plastic, and that's one downside to this kit, major downside to this kit. Alright, we also have this clear sprue. This clear sprue looks okay. The instrument panel looks alright. I don't know why they made this part clear and then they left all the dial faces empty. They're hollowed out right there. So if they would have had a clear part and then had it all clear, so that way when you have the decals underneath, it looks like an actual glass face, that I would understand. But this doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. Alright, we also have a photo-etch sheet right here. So our hinges for our flaps and slats. And also we have some rear view mirrors in there. And then we have some of the bases for our antenna, ejection pole handles, and seat belts all in there. Seat belts look alright. Again, I'm not a fan of photo-etch seat belts, so I'm going to be looking into aftermarket on that as well. Then on the flip side of this, we do have our film for our panel. Panel looks okay. You get a white, you paint that first piece white, and that's really going to make all those instruments show up. Okay, now looking at our exhaust. Okay, so the exterior detail on our exhaust, very, very nice, especially for injection molding right here. All the exterior detail is actually very nice. And then we have the inner side of our exhaust. Again, nice detail. You're not really going to be able to see much of it. We do have a little bit of flash on here, and then also we're going to have to cut off this center band right here. Now when we put these in together, this is how much of it you're going to be able to see. So not much of it. The interior side of this is a little bit generic. You just have a few ribs right here and no other detail. I do believe I do have the aftermarket exhaust for this, so when I do build this kit, I think I'm going to do a side-by-side on these just to see what the difference is, and then also maybe this is just as good as the aftermarket exhaust, so maybe it's something that you don't have to worry about. Okay, so moving on to our first sprue right here, we have some very nice rivet detail on these wings right here. As you can see, and on the flaps, rivet detail, panel line detail, absolutely amazing all the way through. We'll take a wash after paint, very, very nice. And then also we have our pylons right through here, very nice on the panel line and rivet detail on that as well. We also get 2 of these sprues. Alright, then next is our just a various sprue. Looks like we have our FOD gates right here, which the detail on those absolutely amazing on that. Our gear doors on the outside actually clear, nice and smooth right here. And then our burner can right here. There's no, like, you can see that's a joke of detail right there. You're gonna have this piece over it, so it won't really be too visible, but still, I would like to see a little bit more detail in that. We do have a little bit of flash all over the place, and ejector pin marks on the outside, the nubs on the outside of parts, so we'll see when we flip it over on if we have actual ejector pin marks. We have our mud flap right here, again, nice detail on that, and then everything else on here looks rather fine. Our landing gear struts, they do have center line flash right there. Also, I didn't see actual metal landing gear when in the metal pin, so we'll have to check that out later on. But we flip it over, and then on the inside of our landing gear doors, not seeing any ejector pin marks on any of that stuff. Even our main landing gear cabin roofs look very nice as well. Then we have another sprue that's almost identical but not quite. So we have the beginning of our ejection seats right there, more landing gear doors and more pylons right here, and a few of the lumps and bumps. We do have some cabling for the, I think the main landing gear cabin as well. Then also our FOD gate, one of our FOD gates, and then our instrument combing. Instrument combing does look very nice. And then we have our ejection seat right here. That's bare, and then we have another one right here on the flip side. It has seat belts, and then we have the blank instrument panel right here, and again we have another burner can and detail parts right there. We do have flash all over these landing gear doors. Flip it over to the other side, no ejector pin marks on any of these areas that are going to be seen, so no issues with any of that. With the seat, you're going to have to shave off the seat belts if you want to do that, or you can just paint those in. Alright, so up next we have a sprue with our vertical stabilizers right here. Again, like the rest of the exterior detail, the rivets are very nice, very pronounced. Definitely take a panel line and wash when you're done painting it and everything. Then we have the 2-part speed brake right here, so this is going to be the inside. Again, very nice rivet detail on there. Not seeing any ejector pin marks on that. And then we have the other side, the top side of it, which is nice and flush right there. Our switch panels, they look a little bit generic, but they look pretty good. they're right on the verge of being too generic and actually being really good. So nice touch on that. All the other detail on here. Our cockpit tub is blank, but we also have these pieces that are going to liven that up right there. We flip it over to the other side. Not really much to write home about on this. This piece is going to be covered up with this piece, so not worried about those ejector pin marks. So that's all very nice. Alright, and then up next we have our horizontal stabilizers going on. We have some nice static discharge pieces right here. They might seem a little bit thick, so what I might do is I might cut those off and then put in some little brass wire just to make it a little bit more accurate on that. Our wheel hubs, they look okay. Not much detail to them, but the Russian aircraft really didn't have much detail on their wheel hubs. Our bracket or panels to block off our guns, again, nicely molded with the vents through there all the way see-through, so that's a nice detail on that. And then our gun, again, somewhat nice detail. The barrel is I can't tell if that's because it's got flash on it. I can't tell if it's hollowed out or not, so we'll have to see about that. But everything else on here does look fairly nice. We flip it over on the other side and we have our intake fans. Alright, so here's the thing. Intake fans, there's not much detail to them at all. They just have the grates going around, but no fan detail behind that. But here's what I'm saying is, if you're going to have the FOD gates down, you're not going to be able to see these at all anyway. So that's not an issue. But if you are going to have the FOD gates open, like it's in flight, then you are going to be able to see these. So that's going to be an issue at that point. So it's a trade-off. And then for our gun bay, we do have ejection pin marks right there, as you can see, but with that, the gun is going to be sitting on top of that, so you're not going to be able to see that. Alright, moving on to our last sprue before we get to the fuselage halves. This is a double sprue. We get two of these, and these are our air-to-air missiles. I will have to say that out of all the Trumpeter kits and 1/32 scale that I have, this is the fewest amount of ordnance that I have ever gotten in a 1/32 scale Trumpeter kit. As for the detail on them, they look okay. There are aftermarket sets out there that will look a lot better than these, but they do look okay. There is a little bit of flash on the large missiles. I can't remember, are they the 27s or 23s? Not sure, but again, they do look alright. The fins are nice and knife edged on the leading and trailing edges, so on these fins. Now on these main fins right here, they are not. So the front fins are not knife edged, so that is something to take into account. But the rest of the fins are knife edged. Alright, so starting off with the upper fuselage. Alright, so the detail on the rivets and panel lines, absolutely outstanding on that. Very nice. I'm not seeing any real flash on anything here. We move up to the nose. Here's where we have an issue. Alright, so we have a seam line going straight up, like a mold line, like they use a different mold for this part of the kit. And it goes straight up while you have a panel line going right here. So that's a little bit odd. And also the other odd factor about this is it seems to switch plastic between here and here. Alright, so you have a nice silky smooth plastic right up here. Then you have kind of a like almost a grainy textured plastic back here. So that is one issue that I am seeing with this kit. And I also saw it with the SU-30 kit when I did that inbox review. So definitely have to see what's going on with that. On this side, looks like they worked that seam line right into a actual panel line right there. As you can see, it is raised, so you're definitely going to need to sand it back down and then rescribe it, but they did work it to be with an actual panel line right there, so that is nice. A little bit of extra work, but it shouldn't be too bad. But on this side, you're going to have to sand that down, and then also have to worry about losing this panel line right in here. Alright, so moving into our final piece, and this is the lower fuselage. I'm not going to remove it from the box. Number one, to show you how well it's packaged and protected right here, but also getting these back and lined up is a rather pain, and getting that back in. So I'm just going to leave this stuff off. Again, nice panel lines and everything going on there. We don't have the same issue on the nose up here as what we did on the upper fuselage. As you can see, taking that off, there's no issues with that, but everything else on here does look very, very nice, especially on all the detail back here. And you get this all painted up. This part's going to be all metal and burnt metal and all that stuff. Really going to look nice on that. So this part, very, very nice. Alright, so that does it for the Trumpeter 132nd Suhkoi Su-27 Flanker B. Alright, so this kit, the exterior detail on it looks pretty good. Not gonna lie, looks pretty good. Except for the exhaust, the outer exhaust look really, really nice. The inner exhaust leaves a little bit to be wanted. The rest of the detail, the missiles, yeah, a little bit lacking, but they should do the job. The major downfalls for this kit, in my opinion, are the canopy, the glasswork. That is a major downfall for me. I'm hoping that a polish might work that out, but we'll have to see about that. And then the other part is the wheels. The rubber wheels, there's almost no detail to them. And if there is detail on it, it is very light. And taking care of that center seam line on a rubber tire, just for me, is a major pain in the butt, and I have never liked rubber tires. So with that, the aftermarket, I'm going to definitely be getting the wheels. I'm pretty sure I already have those. Also the exhaust, which I'm also pretty sure I have. I'm also think I already have the X-Acto models intakes. With that and the exhaust, I do want to do a side-by-side comparison just to check and see if it is really even needed for that, and how big of a difference do those parts make. And for the cockpit, I mean, it looks okay. The glass front piece for the canopy, or not the canopy, the dashboard, kind of throws me off, because with the holes for the dials, the instrument dials being emptied out, if they would have just had a one flat clear piece, that would have made more sense, but that just, it doesn't make any sense to me. But other than that, that's all I have for this in-box review. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below, especially if you built this kit. Let us know if there's any hiccup areas that we should be on the lookout for. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.